Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Costain. The National Infrastructure Commission for Wales has released its latest report, Building Resilience to Flooding in Wales by 2050. The report presents recommendations for ministers and aims to future-proof Wales against the growing risks of flooding. I spoke to Dr Eurgain Powell, Lead Commissioner at the NICW, and I asked her how much weight had been given to improving natural infrastructure in the report.
Nature is one of the two cross-cutting themes within our NICW flooding report. The other one is community, because we really felt that throughout the work that we had done, that both nature and community aren't currently considered enough. And we feel that these two themes are really integral to delivering all of our recommendations. So we have included several recommendations relating to nature and nature-based solutions. So, for example, setting up a task force to scale up nature-based solutions. And also, I think our focus on catchment approaches recognises that flooding doesn't really care about political boundaries. So the idea of taking a larger scale catchment approach means that you'll be able to take, we feel, be able to take a lot more of a natural flood management approach.
What role do you see for farmers and other land stewards in restoring and maintaining natural infrastructure?
Yeah, I guess, there's recognition that landowners play a really crucial role in terms of supporting future flood resilience. And I think we feel that, there needs to be greater collaboration, both at national level in terms of how Welsh Government are working across the different, the different sort of sectors. So between flood, agriculture, and other environmental management topics, there needs to be greater join up, I think, at that level. But also that recognition of the role of farmers and landowners at the local level, including that catchment approach I just mentioned. So I think involving farmers and other landowners, such as National Trust, in the solutions is really important. And we have come across some really good examples throughout the work that we've been doing where farmers and landowners have been involved. An example is the Upper Conwy catchment.
What you're talking about there seems to have two separate elements. One is behaviour change where it's needed, and the second is how to fund and pay for that change in management. Is the report likely to contribute to a change in funding, or is the focus at this point centred more around the behaviour change element?
I guess both, really. I think in terms of the role of farmers and landowners, obviously they are the people at the front line of some of these impacts of climate change that we are seeing in Wales. The impact of more rainfall and wetter winters. I think there were reports in the press last year from farmers, that they were facing huge financial losses because of the devastating impacts of flooding on crop losses, etc. So, I think they need to be supported to. And that includes the kind of funding and the arrangements around the new SFS, etc., the Sustainable Farming Scheme. So they need to be supported and incentivised, really, to do the things that we need them to do as stewards of our land. So there's a whole theme within our report around funding as well. So how do we develop a better approach, I guess, to funding the solutions that we need to see. So that includes, again, a more kind of integrated and collaborative approach to climate change, adaptation more broadly, and, flood resilience, as well as looking at, greater funding for natural flood management solutions. And I think there's a recommendation around how we sort of integrate the work happening around the Sustainable Farming Scheme as well.
And I suppose that when we're talking about funding, it's about recognising the role of public funding, but also the financial benefit to farmers of retaining water on their land, for example, to help to keep hold of more of their nutrients themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, soil specifically is only mentioned twice in the report, and yet soil health, as we've just been discussing, is critical to water management. Why is there not a greater emphasis on soil health and soil management in the report?
That's a good question. I guess when we started scoping this work at the beginning of 2023, we quickly kind of saw that the whole kind of flood risk management landscape was, pretty vast, and we only had a year and a half to kind of look at it all. So we did have to focus in on the most, what we felt were the most pressing issues. I don't disagree with you around, the importance of soil, but we just weren't able to look at absolutely everything, in the level of detail that maybe, it would have been good to have done. But again, we did find through all of our work that that focus on nature-based solutions is a critical, critically important in terms of developing flood resilience in Wales. So I'd imagine that, through that work, soil health would be an important component of this when that's kind of taken forward.
Many land stewards would consider soil as the critical aspect of water cycling and flood management. Is soil something that the Commission is likely to investigate in more detail in the future?
It probably isn't within our remit. So we get our remit gets set by the Welsh ministers through our remit letter, and the projects that we work on, are currently working on and have worked on, are very much at the request of the Welsh ministers. We will obviously be following the response to our flooding report quite closely. We've had some good conversations with Welsh Government already, and they are, they will be responding to our report in due course. So we will be keeping a close eye on that. I know that they are they're putting a lot more funding and emphasis into natural flood management as part of their flood work. So I hope that that's something that they will be looking into as well.
In your recommendations, you say that nature should be incorporated as a key stakeholder by 2028. What does that mean, and what difference will it make?
So again, it comes back to the idea that nature needs to be a kind of, one of the key themes across everything we do in terms of responding to flood and building better resilience in Wales. So we've already got environmental legislation in place, but does that actually give nature an equal consideration in terms of the decisions that we make? We could sort of talk about that probably at great length, but we felt that giving nature a voice around the table in a way where it's more formally represented, and so that natural systems are considered more formally within the decision-making process will mean that people really do have to consider the impact of all decisions on nature, but not just the impact on nature, but also where, again, nature provides opportunities. So, for instance, with nature-based solutions. So we were really inspired by the Faith in Nature story. Faith in Nature is a company that's been around for decades, but they've actually gone through a legal process recently, and they've appointed nature onto their board. So again, it gives nature an equal voice, and we've included that as a case study within our report if people are interested in finding out more. But we were just really inspired by that as an example. And I know that idea has been taken across to other companies in the private sector. So we just thought that in terms of the public sector response to flooding, it would be an interesting idea to put on the table.
By the time Wales and the Welsh Government have nature on the board in key sectors and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, it would be fair to say that Wales is becoming quite a world leader in these areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Yeah, we're going to be celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act next year, and also the enhanced duties within the Environment Act as well. So we definitely have a very strong legislative framework, very strong policy framework. I think there's appetite across the flood sector for things to change, from involving a range of stakeholders from the flood risk sector in our work over the last few years. They can see that in terms of the changing climate and the future that we are all likely to face, that things need to be done differently, things do need to change, and I think there's appetite across the sector to do things better, in a better way, which is really encouraging.
What are the report's other key recommendations relating to natural infrastructure?
So I think I've mentioned the task force already. So the idea of that task force would be to look at how we can scale up nature-based solutions as quickly as possible. I've also mentioned the catchment scale approaches. One of our work streams looked in detail at catchment approaches, what works, what doesn't work, and how we can maybe achieve a more consistent approach in Wales. So again, I feel that nature-based solutions, would be at the core of that catchment approach. And I think some of our funding recommendations as well talk about funding support for natural flood management, which is already happening in Welsh Government, but I think there's opportunities to sort of scale that up as well.
We touched on funding earlier, but does NICW want to see specific natural infrastructure outcomes linked to payments under the new sustainable farming scheme?
Yeah, again, we haven't looked at the detail of the changes in terms of the SFS. Obviously, it's been a bit of a political hot potato over the last few months and years. So we didn't look at that in detail, but we do think that would be a key enabler in terms of I think one of the recommendations is around establishing a cross-sector climate change adaptation and resilience fund, which is focused on nature-based solutions, and I guess there's an opportunity for that to integrate with the new proposals that are coming through as part of the SFS. But I don't think we specify any specific outcomes around that. But again, we've already discussed the important role of farmers and landowners to support the vision that we set out in our report.
That was Dr Eurgain Powell from the National Infrastructure for Wales. More news as ever on our website 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.